Hey guys, and thanks for watching. Today we have another video. It's going to be another top 10 list. The top 10 list we're doing today was the top 10 development fails where how in the heck was nobody killed. So this is going to be a list of catastrophic failures that by some miracle everybody survived. As always, if you like this content, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also you can check us out on Instagram at development_fails. We got a lot more content over there just like this. So let's get started. Coming in at number 10, we have the Marina torch in Dubai. This, when it was being built, was the tallest residential structure in the world, rising over 1,100 feet tall. Even a decade later today, it's still in the top 10 tallest residential towers in the world. As you would expect from a luxury high-rise in Dubai, it has every amenity you could possibly think of: spas, health clubs, pools, balconies, everything like that. So how did a project like this turn out to be on a list of failures? Well, it had this bothersome little habit of catching on fire. The exterior was apparently quite flammable, and in a 4-year period between 2015 and 2019, it caught fire 3 separate times. And we're not just talking about a little trash fire. We're talking about flames stretching dozens of stories up the side of the building. Miraculously, though, nobody was killed in any of the fires. And after each fire, the residents were moved out, the building was renovated, and the residents moved back in. This building will almost certainly go down as one of the most appropriately named buildings of all time. Next up at number 9, we have the Eindhoven Airport parking garage. This was an airport expansion project where they were expanding a number of parts of the airport, including the parking available at one of the biggest airports in Europe. One of the interesting things about the parking garages that were being built was that they were using a relatively new technique called bubble decks, or its more scientific name, biaxial voided slabs. So what this is essentially in the concrete slabs that make up the parking deck, there's voids embedded into the concrete to make it lighter and to use less material. So this benefits are that it's lighter and it's supposed to be more green and environmentally friendly and all that kind of stuff. Well, unfortunately, the contractor rotated the slabs, the prefabricated slabs, not realizing that the orientation mattered in this kind of construction. Well, after a few months, just before the garage was about to open up, the thing collapsed. And although it was a catastrophic collapse, it caused millions of dollars in damage. Thankfully, the garage hadn't opened up yet and nobody was in it, so no one was killed. Coming in at number 8, we have the Warsaw radio mast. This was a radio tower in Poland that was built in 1974. At the time, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world, being over 2,000 feet tall. So this type of towers have a track record of collapse and accidents, whether it be a structural collapse or an accident with extreme weather or plane crashes, anything like that. These towers have a history of that. So maintenance is important to make sure that they're up to the standards. So in 1991, maintenance work was being performed on this tower. To do this, they had to disconnect some of the support cables, and while this was being done, the wind picked up and the tower began to twist. Since some of the cables were disconnected for the repairs, there was nothing to stop it from continuing to twist. At some point, it reached a point of no return and catastrophically collapsed. Although there were people working on it at the time, nobody was killed. And today, the remains of the tower are still there in some places. Coming in at number 7, we have the John Hancock Tower in Boston, Massachusetts. This building is an architectural icon and has been the subject of both praise and criticism during its time. Its most notable flaw was the windows were susceptible to falling out in heavy winds. Some of these panels, which weighed up to 500 pounds, fell hundreds of feet, crashing to the street below. It got so bad that when winds rose over 40 miles per hour, the city felt it necessary to close down surrounding streets. After wind tunnel testing was done, a solution was determined, and over the next few years, the windows were all replaced. At one point, the building was almost completely boarded up with plywood, and that's where it got its nickname, the Plywood Palace. In addition to changing out the windows, a tuned mast damper was also added to help correct the problem it had with swaying in the wind. Ultimately, though, the building was fixed and continues to be a notable landmark in Boston, Massachusetts. At number 6, we have Chicago's version of the John Hancock Tower. The Aon Center, formerly known as the Standard Oil Building, didn't have problems with the windows falling out, but rather slabs of marble falling off of it. The marble that was used was thinner than typically was used, and this led to substantial cracking in the marble. Ultimately, these cracks got worse, and chunks of the marble would fall off, crashing to the street below. Miraculously, though, no one was killed by this falling debris. After inspections revealed how extensive the cracking was, steel straps were added to hold the marble in place. But by the late 1980s, the decision was made that it was necessary to redo the entire exterior. It took 2 years and cost roughly half the original budget of the building to do, but ultimately the exterior was resurfaced with new white granite instead of marble. Moving on to number 5, we have the Hartford Civic Center. This was a sports arena built in New England in the early 1970s. One of the notable features about it was its roof, which was only supported by 4 columns. At the time, this was seen as cutting edge and would allow for unobstructed views for all the fans. It was also cheaper, so it was seen as a win-win and a model for future arenas. Then, in 1978, only hours after an event with thousands of fans in attendance, the roof collapsed catastrophically. Thankfully, no one was in the building at the time and there were no injuries. Although there was snow on the roof at the time, this was not considered to be the root cause of the failure. A design flaw that led to the building starting to fail from basically the time it was built was deemed to be the cause. The snow just exacerbated the situation. Over the next 2 years, the roof was rebuilt, much stronger than before, and the arena reopened. In the decades since, the building has gone on to see a number of uses, and it is a key part of the city's history. For number 4, we have the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky. This museum opened in 1994 to pay tribute to the famous line of Chevrolet sports cars, the Corvette. The centerpiece of this museum was a large open dome where dozens of rare and expensive Corvettes were on display. Then, on the morning of February 14th, 2014, a large sinkhole opened up directly beneath the display floor, swallowing up 8 of the rare cars. Some of the cars fell as much as a few stories into the cavern below. This was a result of the topography in the area where passing water dissolves pockets of rock, often limestone. As more and more rock is dissolved, the underground cavern grows larger and larger until the weight on the surface can no longer be supported and a sinkhole opens up. The remarkable story about this incident is A, no one was killed because this happened early in the morning before the museum had opened, and B, how well the museum was able to bounce back. Within days, the cars were removed from the hole and testing was being done to secure the area and make sure the rest of the site was safe. The area was repaired and the museum reopened. They even now have a brand new exhibit detailing the incident and some of the cars that had actually fallen into the hole. Number 3 is the Taum Sauk hydroelectric plant failure. This is a pump storage power plant just about 100 miles outside of St. Louis. It consists of an upper and a lower reservoir as well as power generating turbines in between. During nighttime hours when energy demand is low, excess power on the grid is used to pump the water into the upper reservoir. Then, when demand is high during the day, the water is released. As it flows down the hill towards the lower reservoir, it spins the turbines and generates energy. This particular plant is unique because it has no natural inflows and was built on flat ground. This not only means that it requires a dam around the entire upper reservoir, but it is also a net consumer of energy. Despite this, it remains a valuable piece of local infrastructure for its ability to respond to variable electrical demand loads. Unfortunately, warning signs of a problem began to appear in 2005. When the max fill sensors began malfunctioning, they were reset well above the stated maximum capacity. This was done to avoid the annoyance of false alarms. Then, in September, there were reports of a Niagara Falls-like waterfall over the side of the upper dam caused by strong winds. Operation of the facility continued despite several employee warnings of the potential problems. Finally, in late 2005, the dam failed as a result of being overfilled. This released over 1 billion gallons of water, which flowed through the rock and earth dam. This failure occurred only months after the site was designated an IEEE milestone, a high honor in the world of engineering. Miraculously, though, nobody was killed in the incident. There were several injuries, although one of the most severe injuries was a patient who suffered burns as a result of the treatment they were getting for hypothermia. The facility closed for several years while a new concrete upper reservoir was built. It reopened in 2010 and is still functional today. At number 2, we have the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, aka Galloping Gertie. This suspension bridge was the third longest in the world when it opened in 1940. Unfortunately, suspension bridge technology hadn't been totally figured out, and bridges, like this one in particular, had issues with swaying in the wind. There were efforts made to dampen the motion, but these all had limited success. Finally, in November of 1940, 40-mile-per-hour winds made the bridge sway so violently that it was impassable. Luckily, all the motorists who were on the bridge at the time were able to escape just before the catastrophic failure of the main span. Seeing videos of it makes it hard to believe that it's even real, but it is. A silver lining to this incident, besides the fact that nobody was killed, is how much of a role it's played on future bridge design. It highlighted the importance of taking internal resonance and bridge aerodynamics into account when designing a bridge, particularly a suspension bridge. At number 1, we have Lake Peigneur in Louisiana. In 1980, it was a shallow freshwater lake not far from the Gulf of Mexico. It was a popular spot for fishing, boating, and other recreational activities. Situated deep below the lake was a salt mine. There is also speculation that there may be pockets of oil underneath the lake. To investigate this, Texaco began drilling explorative boreholes to see if their guess was right about the oil. Then one day in late 1980, the drill team noticed the rig beginning to tilt and make strange noises. The tilting increased, which forced the workers to abandon the rig. This was only the beginning, however. The tilting grew worse and worse. The water in the lake began to react as if a plug had been pulled out of the bottom of it, which is essentially what had happened. Due to the miscalculation in where the borehole was drilled, they had accidentally intercepted the active salt mine. The lake was literally draining into the mine below. From there, things only got worse and worse. The lake was soon a swirling vortex. Trees, land, even barges were sucked into the whirlpool. Then, without warning, a geyser sprayed hundreds of feet from the mine shaft below due to the pressure that was building up. As the lake's water level continued to drop, something else strange happened. The canal that was leading from the lake into the Gulf of Mexico reversed its flow. Now the Gulf of Mexico was actually draining into this lake. This created a torrent of water and a massive waterfall over 150 feet tall. It took a few days for the water levels to equalize. When it was all over, the shallow freshwater lake had turned into a deep brackish water lake. Miraculously, though, no human lives were lost, even though damage was massive. Texaco faced hefty fines for the damage, and the lake is currently the deepest in Louisiana. So that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos, and like and subscribe and share and all that good stuff. Have a good 2022.